Hi. Today, we're going to talk about humanity's darkest times and how, despite it all, we can find a path to joy in creation. You'll learn how the laws of attraction work in the context of history, why the world seems so chaotic today, and how each of us can start living in harmony with the universal flow. We'll explore why there's been so much violence in history, how it's connected to our nature, and what we can do to change our lives for the better. Ready to dive in? Let's begin.
The dark pages of history in the question of creation. Human history isn't just a timeline of events, it's a story of struggle, suffering, and the search for meaning. We see how, over centuries, people have hurt one another, how entire nations were destroyed, and how freedom was taken from millions. Wars, genocide, slavery, the Holocaust, all of this leaves a deep mark on our collective memory. The question arises, if we're here to live joyfully and create, how did we create so much pain? The answer lies in our nature. We are part of Source, an infinite energy that explores new ideas and experiences through us. Even in the darkest times, we generate desires that Source fulfills. But why, then, does the world seem so cruel today? Why, despite progress, do we still face injustice and suffering? We must understand that our history isn't just a series of random events. Every action, every decision, even the most horrific, was part of a larger process. We learn through contrast, through pain, we understand joy, through darkness, we begin to value light. But this doesn't mean we must accept suffering as inevitable. On the contrary, by understanding this dynamic, we can begin to create a new reality, one where joy and creation become the foundation of our lives. When we look at history, we see that every crisis, every tragedy, gave rise to new desires. People who survived wars dreamed of peace. Those who suffered injustice dreamed of freedom. These desires don't disappear, they accumulate, creating a powerful momentum for change. And today, more than ever, we can use this momentum to create a world that reflects our deepest aspirations, but to do this, we need to understand that we're not just victims of circumstance. We are creators of our reality. Each of us, through our thoughts, emotions, and actions, influences the world around us. When we realize this power, we begin to see that even the darkest pages of history aren't the end, they're the beginning of something new. So, let's ask ourselves, what do we want to create? What kind of world do we want to leave for future generations? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future. Evolution and leading-edge experiences. Evolution isn't just about biological development. It's a process in which even single-celled organisms play a role. Every living being, including us, is on the leading edge of experiences that Source integrates. We are part of this endless flow, where every experience, every thought, every desire creates new opportunities for growth. Today's world is the peak of human cruelty, but also the peak of desires. People all over the world dream of something better, and Source responds to these desires. The energy of the planet is moving faster than ever, and our vibrational alignment with this flow has become critically important. If we resist, clinging to old ideas and fears, we find ourselves struggling. But if we learn to go with the flow, we begin to see the world around us change. This process of evolution isn't limited to the physical world. Our cells, our thoughts, our emotions, all of these are part of leading-edge experiences. We constantly create new preferences, and Source follows them, helping us move forward. But to fully understand this, we need to learn to feel the rhythm of life, to see how everything is interconnected, and to trust the flow. When we look at the world through the lens of evolution, we begin to understand that even the most challenging situations are part of a larger process. We're not just observers, we're active participants shaping reality through our thoughts and actions. And the more we realize this connection, the easier it becomes to go with the flow. But what does this mean for us today? It means that each of us has the opportunity to be part of this evolutionary process. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we're not just improving our own lives, we're contributing to the evolution of all humanity. So, let's ask ourselves, how can we become part of this flow? How can we use our thoughts, emotions, and actions to create a world that reflects our deepest desires? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future. The choice, go with the flow or resist. Each of us has a choice, to go with the flow or to cling to the rocks. Those who go with the flow thrive, while those who resist struggle. This explains why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But what's truly remarkable is the new generation being born with clarity and purpose. They're already ready to live in the flow. What about us? We can stop worrying about the past or present and start looking for what helps us go with the flow. When we focus on what brings us joy, we begin to see the world around us change. But often, we feel guilty because we can't help others who are still struggling. However, it's important to remember, we can't change others. But we can be an example. When we live in harmony with the flow, we inspire others to do the same. But how do we start going with the flow? It begins with awareness. We need to understand that our thoughts and emotions are our compass. When we feel good, we're in the flow. When we feel bad, we're resisting. Our task is to learn to listen to ourselves and make choices that bring us joy. This choice isn't always easy. Sometimes, we face situations that seem overwhelming. But even in those moments, we can find something that brings us joy. It might be something small, a child's smile, a beautiful sunset, or our favorite music. When we focus on these moments, we begin to feel the flow carrying us forward. So, let's ask ourselves, what brings us joy? How can we focus on these moments and start going with the flow? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future. The system of injustice and economics. Let's consider the prison system and injustice. This isn't a moral issue, it's an economic model. Those who run this system are only interested in filling beds. They create laws that increase the number of prisoners because it brings profit. But when people realize how much of their resources are going toward maintaining this system, the pendulum will swing the other way. Everything in this world is economics, and everyone acts in their own self-interest. When we understand this, we stop fighting and start living in harmony with the flow. We can't change the system by convincing others of our righteousness. But we can change it by showing how it affects each of us. When people see that their well-being depends on their choices, they'll start voting for change. But the most important thing is to realize that we don't have to wait for others to change. We can start living in the flow right now by focusing on what brings us joy and fulfillment. When we stop fighting the system and start creating our own reality, we see the world around us begin to change. This process takes time, but it starts with small steps. We can begin by taking better care of ourselves and our loved ones, supporting those who share our values, and finding ways to live in harmony with the flow. When we do this, we become part of the changes happening in the world. So, let's ask ourselves, how can we start living in harmony with the flow? How can we use our thoughts, emotions, and actions to create a world that reflects our deepest desires? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future. The long-term view and vibrational escrow. If we look at the situation from a long-term perspective, it becomes clear, no matter how bad things seem now, they're temporary. When we know what we don't want, we know what we do want. We send our desires into vibrational escrow, and even if our generation resists, the next generation will manifest them. The pendulum always swings, and all we need to do is stop worrying and start living in the flow. When we focus on our desires and learn to feel good, we begin to see the world around us change. We start noticing that solutions come before problems, and our lives become more harmonious. but the most important thing is to realize that we're not alone. Source is always with us, ready to help us manifest our dreams. Our task is simply to turn toward it and start going with the flow. When we look at the world through the lens of the long term, we begin to understand that everything happening is part of a larger process. We can't control everything, but we can control how we respond. When we choose joy and trust, we become part of the flow that carries us toward our dreams. So, let's ask ourselves, how can we start living in harmony with the flow? How can we use our thoughts, emotions, and actions to create a world that reflects our deepest desires? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future. How to start living in the flow? Your power lies in the present moment. The decision to feel better or worse is yours. When you stop resisting and start going with the flow, you gain access to solutions that already exist. Potential problems disappear because you're already in harmony with the flow. Your task is simply to turn toward it. Start small, pay attention to what brings you joy and focus on it. Gradually, you'll begin to notice the world around you changing. You'll see that solutions come easily, and problems dissolve on their own, but the most important thing is to realize that you're not alone. Source is always with you, ready to help you manifest your dreams. Your task is simply to turn toward it and start going with the flow. When you do this, you begin to see your life becoming more harmonious. You start noticing that everything you need comes to you at the right time. You begin to feel that you're part of something greater, and that your life has meaning. This process takes time, but it starts with one step, the decision to feel better. When you make this choice, you begin to see the world around you change. You start to understand that you're part of the flow that carries you toward your dreams. So, let's ask ourselves, how can we start living in harmony with the flow? How can we use our thoughts, emotions, and actions to create a world that reflects our deepest desires? The answer starts with us. When we choose joy, love, and creation, we become part of the flow that carries us toward a better future.
Thank you for being with us today. I hope this video helped you see how, even in the darkest times, we can find light. Remember, your choice is your power. Stop resisting, start going with the flow, and you'll see the world begin to change around you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.